But talking about aging, I look at myself on the TV. Gee, that's about only 2 years ago. And I couldn't even recognize myself. I have more wrinkles now than before. Just 2 years. 4 years ago? That looks young. And now, so if you want the proof of aging, you just look at me. It's a live example right here. But I have a disciple who took refuge about 10 years, not 10 years ago, about 6 years ago. He was a doctor, a brain surgeon in China, and he became a doctor in Hong Kong later. And now at the age of 76, 77, he talked to me, he said, "Oh, I want to enroll in a PhD program." So he already had enrolled in the PhD program studying the relationship between Chinese herbal medicine and Western medicine. He's now 78. And he will graduate at the age of 81. And then I said, "What do you do after graduation?" "I'll come out to practice." So we're talking about learning. If you are just 75, you are just a baby. Because people start to study PhD at 78. And he's been consulting me, been talking. He said, "I have to spend $300,000 to pay the tuition fee for the 4 years. Is it worth it?" It's very difficult to answer the question for him. What I did is I countered a question. "Do you like it?" I don't want to be responsible. I said, "Do you like it? How do you feel?" He said, "I like it. Nobody can stop me from doing it." My son and my daughter say, "No, you have to spend so much money, and we're worrying about your health because it's involved in the PhD program. You really have to study hard and you have to write up your thesis." And I'm not afraid of doing that. I can graduate. So he's been phoning me every now and then. I found that recently he gave me phone numbers that didn't work. I tried to contact him. He gave me his dormitory number. I couldn't contact him, and I'm sort of worrying. How come he gave me, on a couple of occasions, he gave me the wrong phone numbers? But anyway, I'll be in Hong Kong later, and I'll be visiting him anyway. So this is just an encouragement. Someone who start to study, to go to university at 78, 76. All right, let me start answering some questions. First question: sending joy and happiness to those who suffer, may they join the path to peace of mind. Yeah, if you can give joy to those who suffer, for example, being a volunteer in a hospice care, we have people in here who like to do that. And Lee's been doing that, right? Going to hospice care to care for the dying patients, and also Daphne has been doing there for a number of years. She even went to Calcutta. I think for a number of years, 2-3 years, she went to Calcutta for 3 months, 6 months, just to care for the dying in India. And that's courageous. That's especially if you're in a foreign land in India, you've been doing that. You could be very comfortable in North America, but you went to India and care for dying patients, holding their hands. She told me her experiences of holding dying patients' hand. Some people are afraid of holding dying people's hands, but she's been holding their hands, and she's not just one patient, many patients, comforting them to them. So it's really Bodhisattva way of living. Giving joy and happiness to those who suffer, of course, it's the best. You are actually another Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, the Nirmanakaya of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. You know, a Bodhisattva, a Buddha has three bodies: the Dhammakaya, Nirmanakaya, and Sambhogakaya. Nirmanakaya is the actual body. Buddha Sakyamuni had it's expressed himself as in actual body. In the history of mankind, there's such a Buddha, there's a Nirmanakaya. So if you are practicing giving joy all the time, you're actually another slice, another facet of Nirmanakaya body of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva of compassion. So that's praiseworthy. That's good that you're doing that. In my mind, holding a dying patient or sitting by the bedside of a dying patient, in my mind, I don't feel comfortable when I'm doing that. But actually, when circumstances come that I have to do it, I don't feel any discomfort at all. I did that. So that is still a blockage to the mental thinking. People don't think we think with restrictions on us, because we're afraid of holding dying people, the hands of a dying person. But when the time comes, you really have the compassion, you would do it. Liking, hating, or being afraid of something could be related to the past life. Yeah, liking, your hobby, something you like, something you hate. Some children were born with certain talent. Some children like piano, some children like violin, some children like to sing. They all have learned that in previous life. They just remember in this life. There are past lives. You have past lives. And it's logical to think that way. If you don't have a previous, how do you have a present? Where do you come from? Time is not just of the present, it's of the past too. Past is not just yesterday or last year. It goes beyond this life, previous life. I just want to do a survey. How many people really, deep in their heart, do believe in reincarnation? You raise your hand. Honestly, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't believe in it. So only about, I would say 60%. There is a 40% who don't believe, not necessarily believe in it. And they may have the question, how do you prove it? You prove it to me. If you can prove it to me scientifically, I believe it. How do you believe in something? How do you believe in something? Let's get into the logistics of believing, the logistics of cognition. How do you believe in something? And you can say, I believe in something if I have seen it, if I've heard it, if I have touched it, I personally have experienced it, then I know, then I believe in it. I haven't seen any previous life. I don't know my previous life. So how can I believe in something that I haven't seen? They don't believe unless their senses have direct contact with them. I think this method of believing is not founded on a good foundation, on a good ground. Why? Because there's so many things we haven't seen, we haven't heard, but they exist. Because our senses are limited. There are many, many things that we haven't seen at all, we haven't heard at all, we haven't tasted at all. They do really exist. So we cannot say that we have to see it. We have to directly experience it before we believe in it. If you haven't been to Beijing, you haven't seen Beijing, do you think Beijing exists? If you haven't been to New York, you've just heard about people, because your presumption is, your premises is, I have to see it personally to believe it. You haven't personally seen New York. You believe in the New York existence? You haven't personally have seen your great-grandfather. Do they exist at all? You haven't even maybe you haven't even seen your grandfather, not to say your great-grandfather. You haven't seen your great-grandfather with your own eyes, but you believe them. So that leads to another foundation of believing. I've heard about it. Some people told me. Yeah, we also believe in something if it is from a trustworthy source. We believe in it. Because my dad told me that he has a dad, even though I haven't seen my great-grandfather, my grandfather, because my dad told me so. So if it's from a trustworthy source, I believe in it. So that leads us to think, hey, sometimes we believe in something, not just relying on our senses, as long as somebody, a trustworthy source, told us, we believe in it. That's how we believe in things. My mom told me, my dad told me. But in this case, Buddha told me. Buddha told me this is what it is. And more than just Buddha, there are other saints, other enlightened beings who told me all these. Not just the single Sakyamuni Buddha. He experiences all these things, and he told me that. So I have reason to believe in a trustworthy source. Unless to say, oh, these are saints, Buddha, I don't believe in it. Buddha doesn't even exist. How do I know Buddha exists? But it's written in history. Do you believe in the history of mankind? It's written in history that Buddha exists. It's just as Jesus exists. Written in history. Descartes, Plato, Socrates, all the kings of Rome. They all exist. They're all written in history. Do you believe they exist at all? Or you have to see them? So you believe in something when from a trustworthy source told you. You also believe in something by a priori knowledge, by deduction, by reasonable, logical deduction, thinking. If there's a remote mountain out there, I'm in here, it's so many miles away. I saw smoke in there. I have reason to believe that there could be fire in there. There's no smoke without fire. I haven't seen the fire, but I postulate it. I deduce it, oh, there must be fire. I don't necessarily have to see the fire, do I? So you believe in something by postulation. Plus, also, I have so many life examples of past lives. If you research into Ian Stevenson, he collated about more than 3,000 cases in Sri Lanka for 30 or 40 years of his studies in Sri Lanka and India and in Asia of past life experiences of cases in these countries, and he compiled a cases of reincarnation. He's a scientist. He was a scientist. There's so many cases of reincarnations about it. Then morally, we say, should we believe in a past life? If you don't believe in a past life, morally, the society is at risk. The society will have a problem. You know why? Because I only have this life. As long as I'm happy, I can do what I want. I can kill, I can steal, I can rape, as long as I'm happy, because my existence is only in this life, I want to be happy. You don't think about what happened in your next life. There could be a causality that leads to a karma into the next life. Morally speaking, not scientifically, not logically, if you don't believe in the past and the future, you only have this life, what's the point of believing in anything? What's the point of believing in God? The reason why I believe in God is I have an afterlife, a heaven that I can go to. If it's just this life, no more future life, then I can do what I want. Philosophically speaking, based on logic. If you only have this life, the logic does not stand. In other words, it's illogical to have a time dimension of only one aspect, only of the present, no past, and no future. But we're not talking about reincarnation. It's just because I want a show of hands, and I find that only about 70% believe in past lives. So all the others who raised your hands, you already have firmly believe in past lives. Yeah, I did. I should have raised my hand too. Yes. Yeah. All right. Would it hurt you if you believe in past life? Let's put it this way. Would it hurt you? Would it help you? It helps you to explain something. All right. Next questions. What practices can we do to help with self-compassion? Self-compassion is you want to be compassionate to yourself. I think meditation would do. Generally speaking, the Buddha talked about two extremes that we shouldn't go into. One extreme is self-indulgence, and the other extreme is self-mortification. What is self-indulgence? Self-indulgence is, I think there's a term for it, is hedonism. Hedonism, your life is only aiming at satisfaction of your sensual pleasure. You only look, you only look for pleasures. By all means, you just want to have fun, nothing else. If anything is standing in your way, blocking your pursuit for satisfaction of the senses, you remove them by all means. Now that's self-indulgence. On the other hand is self-mortification. Self-mortification is you give up asceticism. You give up all your desires. No more desires up to a point that you expel them. You're being cruel to yourself. The Buddha said, no, you don't go to extreme. You go the middle way. So what practices will do? You follow the Buddha's what practices? The Buddha's teaching of meditation. The Buddha's teaching of meditation, if you meditate, put your mind under control, you have the right view, you have the right thinking, right thought, right mindfulness, that will steer you towards compassion, not just to yourself, to others. I remember there's a psychologist who talked to me about patients. He has a number of patients who always come up with the feeling of self-degradation. I'm no good. I'm no good for anything. He's in a state of self-degradation, denying himself, no confidence. He thinks that he's a piece of garbage. Now that's another swing. They go to another extreme of close to self-mortification. This kind of people would finally maybe committing suicide, because the self-denial works to its extreme is self-mortification. You walk away from there. You don't go into two extremes. And the Buddhist teaching gives you the middle way, tells you to go the middle way.
Well, in terms of happiness,
Yeah.
Dharma says, I think it's number 160, whatever happiness there is in this world comes from trying to help others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is in this life comes from wishing for oneself to be happy. So in order to find out self-happiness, give your energy to making others happy. And in that you realize you are not alone in your human suffering. And,
yes.
And in helping others, you find the way to help yourself.
Yes, in helping others, you're eliminating your ego, because you're not geared towards yourself first. You have given up yourself. It's the same as what the Dharma Sutra says: no personality, no I, no ego, no duality, no ignorance of impermanence, because your ego is all gone. By always giving out, you don't have the ego exist in you anymore. That ego is the prison that binds you there. All this unhappiness, frustration, conflict, they arise from the self, the ego. If you don't have that anymore, your ego prison crumble, and you see the whole world, the whole vista, the whole horizon of view. Right now, we're all restricted by our ego prison. So the Dhammapada it's absolutely philosophical and right.
Through others, we see that we are part of the world, and vice versa. We're part of the world, and the world is part of us. Otherwise, caught up in the ego, we're isolated and feel alone. But giving out.
Yeah, every hair in the follicle, did you think it's one single hair? It's one entity. In other words, if the body is healthy, that hair is healthy. If that hair is not healthy, it's going to give eczema to you, which I have right now. So it's not healthy. Just one spot is not healthy, the whole body isn't.
But what if you are always continuously self-giving to other people to the point where you forget yourself all the time?
You're getting into I again. What happened if I give out too much? Now I worry about, wow, what happened? I don't have any more for myself. You're reverting back.
Yourself in a really bad situation that you're kind of focusing on other things and not yourself in the sense of protecting yourself.
Well, of course, you always got to think. You have to, when Avalokitesvara is giving out help, there's an I in there. You have to discern when is enough, what is enough. You won't come into a level that you just give and give and give. But for those who are really eagerness, they don't worry about what happened tomorrow. They would continue to do it and continue to do it. It's just like when Albert Schweitzer in Africa, when he's thinking about all these germs and all these epidemic diseases, he won't go to Africa to be a doctor. He forgot about all this danger. Nothing venture, nothing win. If you forget about all this danger, you'll march out triumphantly. If you worry about, oh, what happened to this, what happened to that, I'm going to care about this, then you're restricted. And what happened if you got killed? That Bodhisattva said, if I get killed, so that be it. There's so many levels in being a Bodhisattva. The first level probably say, oh, okay, I got only $10, I can only give 5, I leave for 5 for myself. But in the ultimate level, in the highest level, they don't think about, I want to preserve so much for myself first. They don't think about that way. In other words, you have to be intelligent in how you walk the path of purification. Yeah, there's another question down there. Yes?
If I do something for people, I think I do also something for myself. Because with doing that, I burn my bad karma.
Oh yes, another way you're burning your own karma, your bad karma. Yeah, you're rendering out, you're burning your bad karma. Everybody has a bag of invisible karma behind them. Everybody, no exception. That's why you're here. That bag of karma, someone's karma is very heavy, some is light. You don't know what happened tomorrow. The other day I talked about, there was a very high level monk, an enlightened monk, who wrote in his autobiography, he says, everything has two aspects. One is self-efforts. The other is other efforts. So using your own self-efforts to practice is limited. You really have to invoke Bodhisattva's help. There's a Bodhisattva and Buddhas who are already out there, and arahats also, who are already out there to help you. You've got to tune in the frequency. That's why we're chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. Don't forget your everyday lesson of tuning. You tune in your compassion radio, the messages from that grand universal compassionate radio, but you've got to tune in. Don't forget to chant every day, for prostration every day. The prostration, don't think that chanting is the most effective, prostration is not effective. Prostration is extremely effective too. It's a kind of meditation. You prostrate very slowly to the Bodhisattva, to Buddha. The prostration, your repentance, your prayer, your chanting, your meditation, all this counts. So I always tell people, if you spend 1 hour watching television, why don't you spend half an hour just chant? Very important. So we don't know what happened tomorrow. Today you're okay, tomorrow I don't guarantee, nobody guarantee. But Bodhisattva and Buddhas, people call them guardian angels in some other religion, they're out there to help you. But you've got to tune in with them.